Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. Today guys, we're diving into the world of Cardano and specifically talking about the price action of ADA. Is it all over? Have we seen the best of ADA so far, or is the best yet to come? As we dive into this video, we're going to be taking a look at the weekly, daily and hourly charts to see exactly what to expect next with Cardano. If you find this video useful and informative, hit that like button, I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, why not go ahead and subscribe, tap that bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With that said, done out of the way, let's dive right down into this weekly chart. Okay, guys, so as we can see, there are 5 impulse waves. Really started back in March of 2020, right? That's pretty much the start of wave 1, wave 2, wave 3 was recently, I think, peaking up in April. Pull back with wave 4 and then going up to wave 5. It's quite a nice, neat example of the 5 impulse waves to the upside. Now, there are 2 main correction waves, wave 2 and wave 4. We've had to endure wave 4. We have set a new all-time high since the lows of wave 4, and we've come back down recently, okay? And we've been kind of trading sideways. This kind of sideways trade isn't too uncommon. It's kind of what we saw over here with Cardano. And also, there's a moment in time halfway through wave 3 and at the beginning of wave 3 as well. Okay, so it's not too unnatural to see these kind of sideways trades happen. Basically, the market's a bit indecisive at the moment to see exactly what is likely to happen next. But the expectation is still to rise the price of ADA up to at least $7.22, pushing up towards that $10 range. And we're going to get into why that is in the smaller timeframes in a moment. Overall, basically from March through to the peak up here of wave 3 in May, we have 14,000% in gains. That is significant. That's to put that into context for you guys, Bitcoin has only driven 1,600 and Ethereum has only driven 5,100, right? So we know that by putting that into relation, ADA has outperformed both Bitcoin and Ethereum, the safer bets, if you will. So as you can see, good progress has been made, and I still anticipate this 5th wave to get underway shortly. With Cardano, the smart contracts that have recently rolled out has meant that projects can now build upon the ecosystem. And once we start seeing those roll out, we'll start seeing the transactional volume. And with the transactional volume, you'll start seeing more use case for ADA. And obviously, the more ADA that gets used for transactions, the tighter or the higher the demand for the ADA coin will be, right? And as a result, what you'll find is a squeeze on the supply through staking, delegation, and then obviously a demand for the token to basically pay for all of their gas fees, right? So as a result, you start to see a nice steady rise in price. Okay, market capitalization means absolutely nothing in terms of price. It basically is a simple calculation of last sold price multiplied by the circulating supply. It is not a barrier to say that you cannot go to a price point because of market capitalization. Not in the sense of market capitalization for the crypto space anyway. It's too basic. It's too simple to actually be used that way. Instead, raising up to about $10 range for ADA puts it at about $320 billion. So that is even less than Ethereum right now. So we know that $10, even if you want to use the market cap calculation as a basic kind of guide, it's very possible it's going to be lower than Ethereum is right now today, right? So moving to $10 is very, very possible, specifically because of the 2 things that actually matter. One, which is a squeeze on the supply. We've seen the squeeze on the supply with delegation, staking, getting a lot of the circulating supply actually out off of exchanges and into wallets and staked and delegated to earn a nice passive income. And if you're interested in that, obviously we do run a pool. Do check the link in the description below. And basically, the second thing that you need is obviously the demand. And the demand is going to come from not just speculative investment that we've seen so far, but also the transactional volume that's going to be coming in with all of these new dApps being built on the ecosystem. So overall, everything on this weekly chart is coming in quite nicely. We have to be a little bit patient during this kind of sideways trade, but we're holding up well. And I'm going to get into that in a moment. Okay, the other thing that's worth noting is the stochastic RSI has come down quite nicely. We can, of course, drop this down a little bit lower. And of course, we're lowering it without actually doing any damage to the price. This is quite good and a good testament to kind of holding out a key area and allowing us to then grow back to the upsides shortly. So overall, the stochastic's in a pretty good position. We can see that we were heavily oversold during the 4th wave correction, heavily oversold during the 2nd wave correction, and there was a little bit of volatility in the stochastic RSI and specifically around those key points that I had highlighted already. So overall, the stochastic is looking pretty good, but there are a few things we need to be aware of. And let's just first of all jump down into our daily as we kind of go through these. Okay, so here we have the Fibonacci retracement tool. Okay, this is a really helpful way to understand where things are likely to trade from, where we're going to find good support, where we're going to find resistance. Okay, and this basically runs off your current performance, the high of peak of wave 3 and the low of wave 4. Okay, this then shows us with that $7.22 area, although it's come out at 23, so I've it a little bit off somewhere, but nonetheless, $7.23. And then obviously we put the fifth wave up there at the psychological barrier of $10. Okay. Now there is, of course, some interesting things that are going on here. We have a cup and handle, for example. So we have that running from the top of wave 3 all the way down. We have our cup, and then we basically pull down into our handle, and then we look to push up again towards $4.45. Okay, so that's the kind of target that we have set out for the month of October. Okay, so that's where we envision things going. Okay, but in order to get there, we obviously have to get through a few barriers first, right? And if we actually take a look at this in a little bit of detail, we can see that we're hovering right now, just finding good support on our 786. This is $2.15. Okay, we are of course overbought on the daily, so we are looking to kind of pull this stochastic to the downside shortly. Although we don't have to, we have been up here for quite some time previously, right? This entire run was built from being overbought, right? And in fact, we were still pushing the price up whilst we were losing that momentum. Okay, so being up here isn't really a problem on the daily, but we would like to see it a little bit lower to give us more room to grow later. Okay, so if we can lower that with sideways trading, that would be ideal, because that will allow us to continue to trade inside this zone and then allow us to move up later. Okay, although I do think we are likely to see a more sharper incline shortly once Bitcoin gets past a couple of key levels, right? We've seen as Bitcoin passes past its 786 at about $57,500. Gets a closed candle above that level, that's going to be a big bull signal that will help all these other altcoins actually get some momentum behind them. Right now, the market's quite fearful. Is it a fake out? Is it not a fake out? Is it a bull trap? Is it not a bull trap? Lots of things kind of going on with Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is leading the way right now. So as soon as Bitcoin passes some of its key areas, we should start to see things like ADA get a little bit more traction behind them, a little bit more confidence back in the market, specifically from retail investors that have been damaged by the likes of Elon Musk, etc., and the nonsense tweets that they put out. So overall, the manipulation is quite harsh, but the narrative is changing and is building for Bitcoin. So we should start to see some good traction eventually once Bitcoin gets past some of its key areas. Overall, this daily chart's looking pretty well structured. We have some good targets. We've got a cup and handle aiming at $4.45 for the month of October. Although timing is the hardest thing to gauge, I do anticipate that being a target for October, but it might go into November a little bit, and we'll have to just monitor that situation. Now, so at this point, I think it's important that we also bring up the advice.io dashboard, and the advice.io dashboard uses artificial intelligence, machine learning to help us understand the underlying value of a cryptocurrency. If you're not familiar, there's a link in the description down below. It's completely free. Sign up, and you'll be able to get more detailed analysis about your cryptocurrencies, right? So in this case, we're looking at Cardano. We have a B3 rating overall, and it runs from A1 all the way down to D. Okay, so those are your ratings, A1 being the best, D being the worst. A B3 is right slap bang in the middle, on the cusp of bad, right? But it's not in the C ratings. It's in the mid-range. It's quite a neutral, but it is on the worst side of life right now. And I'm going to get into why that is, right? If we come down, we actually break this down a little bit further. We go into a little bit more detail. We have the fear and greed index at a D, right? So basically, the fear and greed index is the sentiment in the space. Is it fearful? Is it greedy? Does it look to have FOMO activity, or are people more willing to sell their ADA right now than to buy it? And that's exactly what we're seeing. We're seeing a fear and greed index at the rating D, the worst it can be, which basically means that people are not confident in Cardano right now. In fact, actually, they're more likely going to sell their Cardano because it's not doing what they think it's going to be doing, and ultimately they're going to sell it to try to chase those green candles. That's how I interpret the data. Now, ultimately, I would never sell my ADA in that kind of way, and ADA is probably one of the most valuable things in the crypto space right now. So I definitely wouldn't be doing that, in my opinion. So a fear and greed index of rating of D is quite an interesting thing just to understand. And as we get into some of these other metrics, hopefully this will become quite clear as to why this is very odd. Now, the moving averages are C2, but this is understandable, right? And this is understandable because of the recent kind of activity that we've seen with the volatility with Bitcoin, for example. So the 10-day average is at 218, the 50-day average is at 247, and 100-day average is at 195. So overall, a C2 rating against the moving averages, which means we're not exactly performing well against those. But I do think that is likely to change in due course. Now we get into the interesting stuff, right? As we come down, we have a Sharpe ratio, and this is an A2 rating. Bearing in mind that's the second best rating possible. Well, what is the Sharpe ratio? Well, the Sharpe ratio is your risk-reward ratio, okay? And the risk to holding ADA versus the rewards of holding ADA. And right now, this is suggesting that holding ADA is a pretty good idea. We are above the 50-day average, but barely. So this might slip down a little bit in the next few days or so. But ultimately, we have extreme fear, right? People are willing to sell, but they've also got the risk-reward ratio in their favor, which means that these two things are polar opposites to each other, which is very unusual. And as we come down, we also have the profitability, the ROI of A1, right? And as I said at the beginning of the video, right, 14,000% in gains so far is significantly higher than that of Bitcoin and Ethereum. Okay, so the profitability is right up there. So obviously that's an A1. But the other issue that we do have here is the AMI-HAD ratio. This is showing a C2 rating. So the AMI-HAD ratio is your liquidity. Okay, so there's some liquidity-based problems for Cardano. And the question really becomes here is, what are those problems and why is it a problem? Because we understand that there is a pretty good supply of Cardano in ADA. So what is going on here? Is there an exchange that's preventing you from withdrawing or buying ADA? Is there something going on with some exchanges that are preventing you from actually accessing ADA? And is that actually causing a liquidity problem? Is there a problem with the decentralized exchanges? Is there some kind of liquidity-based problem with that? Okay, so be concerned over this a little bit. Not overly, because I think we're too soon to really consider ourselves selling and all of that kind of stuff. But ultimately, you know, when you've got liquidity-based problems and you've got a fear and greed index problem, those two things are going to compound each other down. So I do think those are a bit of a concern for ADA, at least in the shorter time frame. Overall, though, with a Sharpe ratio that's in your favor and profitability that's looking pretty good, and of course, our fifth impulse wave pushing up towards at least $7.22, in my opinion, according to the current performance of wave 3 and wave 4, looking to head up a 4.236 extension at $7.22. All of that's looking pretty good, and I do expect with transactional volume that we could in fact overextend a lot of this as well and go up towards that $10 range. Overall, I'm pretty confident in Cardano long term. I do expect some volatility to occur here in the next kind of week, maybe two, but as I said before, I am expecting Cardano to rise up towards our $4.45 target of October. That is almost up towards our 2.618 of $4.85. Guys, I'm going to now just jump down briefly into our hourly view. This is where we see some of that volatility and what is it going on right now. Now, we can see that we're finding good support on our 786, this previous area of support. We did briefly drop down below it, but we have started to move back up again. Now, there is an upper area of resistance. This is kind of coming in at $2.25, and of course being oversold and looking to push up. However, we have got a problem here. Now, if I actually throw my volumes on here, you can see the volumes are decreasing, right? There was a good pocket of buying right here, but basically it was just within 1 hour. And basically as the price pulled down, okay, we started to see the volume push up. That's that fear in the space, okay? Basically, people are willing to sell when you get to a key point here and basically further that trend to the downside. And when it comes to pushing the candles back up, the volumes go down, okay? So we know that there's more people willing to sell than there are to buy. But again, that's compounded with the fact that there are liquidity-based problems. Are you actually able to buy, or are you only able to sell? Okay, some interesting things are going on here when it comes to Cardano, and some things that are not quite making any sense right now. That being said, if there is manipulation occurring here, I am going to be monitoring to see exactly what is going on and to make sure that everything is going to plan. It will be short-term though. It won't be kept down low for too long, and I do anticipate we're going to see a good surge to the upside shortly. Overall, this is a small trend. I don't think that's going to hold. I do anticipate us just dipping below the 786 ever so slightly. in the next few hours, and just kind of coming in here before moving back up again. I do anticipate that what we're likely to do is just kind of trade sideways here across this area between $2.29 and our 786 at $2.15. This is going to be this similar area that I think we're going to bouncing around until that sentiment in the market changes and we eventually push back to the upside. Guys, I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully you have found this video useful and informative. If you have, then why not go ahead and hit the like button? I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, why not go ahead and subscribe, tap that bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With this said, done, and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.